What's up, guys? Today we're checking out a game called Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. Now, if you were playing games back during the PS2, the GameCube, or the Xbox era, you might remember this game because it came out then, all platforms, and it was actually a good game. A lot of people may have missed this, or if you started, like I said, playing games in like the 360 or even very recently, this might actually be a new game to you, and that's actually kind of exciting because this game is actually really good. I like this game a lot. I played it on the GameCube first back in the day, and then I played it on the Xbox. I got an Xbox after the GameCube, and then I got a PS2 last in that generation, which is weird to think about. But I really like this game. It is kind of hard to describe what the game exactly is, I guess, because it kind of is its own thing, but it's a little bit of, I guess, Zelda, traditional Zelda with dungeon solving and puzzle solving in those dungeons, for example, and Metroid, kind of, because you get items that then let you do other things in the world that you backtrack to, and there's actually a lot to do in this game. And right now THQ Nordic is selling it on the Switch for $29.99. I think they're coming to the table with it being a bit expensive. I think this would do better if it was like $15 or even $20, but they've decided to launch at $30, and that's not to say it wouldn't go on one of those eShop sales, because it's dropped in price on Steam. I picked it up on Steam also when it launched there in November. And now here it is on the Switch. Has not arrived on the Xbox One or the PS4 at this time. They decided to push it right to Switch for $30. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run you through a part of the game earlier on that is a puzzle that we're trying to work through so we can get into this room. Because if I run up here, that laser will shoot me, and then it brings you right back to this point here. So I have to figure out how to get in that room. We have this room over here that's open, so we're going to go ahead and go through there and attempt to solve this puzzle. And I also want to show you one other thing that was interesting. So in the options menu, I always like to go through the options whenever I get a game just to see. Check this out. They have field of view that you can alter. You can turn the particle effects on and off. It has anisotropic filtering and multi-sampling. You could play around with all of this stuff. Like, I could turn anisotropic filtering down to 1. I turn up to 16, and you do actually see the differences as you play around with these, which is surprising. I assume that could affect the frame rate that is 60 frames on here, by the way. And they did a good job smoothing out a lot of the rough edges from the older PS2 and GameCube and Xbox days. So it looks better, but it still looks like it was a PS2, Xbox, GameCube type game. It doesn't look like they did a lot of work outside of smoothing it all out. Still similar textures and everything. So visually, it's not like a striking game or anything. You're not going to look at this and say, wow, this game looks amazing. No, it is true to form of the original one, just it looks better on an HDTV as opposed to what you would have with the original one if you play it here. Of course, it looks like they added widescreen support, as you can see as well. So let's run through here. There's also a cutscene right there. I'll cut those out because there is a part of the story that's kind of intertwined with this part of the game right now. So I'll skip through some of those cutscenes so they don't spoil them for you. So you don't have to worry too much about that. So we have these guys here that have keys that we have to get, so we can insert them into those keyholes. So we're going to drop this guy up here, and then we're going to climb up. And his climbing animation was always the weirdest thing to me when I remember playing this. He does this weird swaying thing, and he does that when he tries to get across the ledges as well, which is really weird. I don't really know why they do that. I guess it was just like just something they decided to do in production. But the game runs well, as I would kind of expect. I mean, it's technically a PS2 game as I go through that rope, so that made my point very well there, right? It runs well, and I fall right through a rope. There are still those weird glitches. Like I said, you can still tell it's basically a PS2 game, and it has that same feeling from back in the early 2000s, late 90s, where they don't hold your hand in these games. I will say that. Some people might like that because there's not as much hand-holding. There's a lot of... It assumes that you know what you're doing most times. Like, it'll give you a new item or ability, like a double jump, just as an example. And it wants you to remember, well, where can I use that double jump that I couldn't do before? It doesn't give you a waypoint on a map or anything like that. It just assumes that you know what you're doing. Some people won't like that. I was fine with it. I guess I played it on Steam as well, and I liked it there. It was really cool to go back through it with this kind of a look, where it looks that much better. I don't mind it, though, as much. The whole, it's not going to tell you every single thing. It expects you to remember some stuff. It doesn't bother me. Although, we did just get off a week with Resident Evil 2, the remake, where people were complaining about it being too hard and not run and gun as much. So we'll see. If people want to try this game out, I would be curious to see responses. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is going to sell very, very well initially, just because of that price point. I think if this was a $15 to $20 game, it would be way better, right? Even now, it's hard for me to tell you to absolutely go buy this. I do think it'll fall in price during a sale. So, would I spend $30? Yeah, THQ Nordic sent this one over, but I did buy it on Steam when it came out anyway. So I would buy it because I really liked it. I think the regular one on like the PS2 or the Xbox or the GameCube is, I think it's like $10 or less. So it's not like expensive there or anything. This obviously is set up much better for a HD TV. So if you want a better looking one, $30. So we have both of our glyph keys. We're going to go ahead and run down here. Now in this game, you do play as two different characters. I'm currently playing as Sphinx. There's also the mummy, as it says in the title, the Cursed Mummy. And it's pretty cool with him because he doesn't really do any fighting. It's all puzzle solving. And the puzzles are well thought out because he can't actually get killed. It's funny because he's already dead. So they do some funny things with that. Like they light him on fire and stuff. It's really funny. And the puzzle solving there is good. It's satisfying. It really is. And they have this part as you get a little further in. Like I said, this is kind of the beginning of the game, just not show you too much as you get further in. But where it kind of becomes kind of non-linear, like it almost becomes an open world that's not really open world. Again, kind of hard to describe, but there's a lot to do in this game. I think if you really rush through this game, maybe 15 hours, but to really get everything, it takes a while. Like, I think this is a 15, 20-hour game for most people, which for a lot of people now is a good length. And you have these little guys here, gold scarabs that are your currency as I break those down. And this is going to be fun because this is like a Simon Says type thing, so I'm going to have to mildly concentrate here for a second. Let's see, we got red, blue, green, yellow, green, red. Okay. Red, blue, green, yellow, green, red. Okay, so that's all orange now. We can kind of get this guy and break him. You do have a sword initially to start out with. You actually get that right at the end of the tutorial that you play through. So I do have a way to attack things, as you're seeing here. And you do get more and more weapons as you go, items, abilities. There's a lot of stuff that they give you. Like, here's your artifacts, monsters that you'll actually track, and you get all kinds of cool things like attack rating, defense rating, and stuff on notes. And then you can see you have ability items, and you have quest items. So you'll fill this up too, this tab. It gets filled up pretty well. So there is a lot of stuff to collect and upgrade, and as you get further in and you discover these things, it's pretty neat. So we have these targets we got to hit. I'm going to hit that one, hit that one, and then we're going to see if this right here is too high for me to hit. So I'm actually going to go over here, jump on this guy, and it'll drop one of those cages with the skeletons down that, of course, I can then use to get on top of and then hit these targets. There we go, hit that guy. So after that opened up, we have these spikes here. I'm actually going to run back because some of those ropes drop down. And I'll go ahead and jump up, and I should be able to, at that point, do some ledge grabbing, which you'll see here in a second. He also does that weird swaying thing when he climbs up ropes. I don't know. This was a game, I remember back in the PS2 days, for example, that when it came out, it felt very smooth. I remember that. And it was something that I noticed, and many people noticed back during the PS2 days, for example, that they went for higher frame rate games. I remember, I think Jak and Daxter was a 60 frames per second game. Maximo, Sphinx, they were all higher frame rate, and they looked very smooth when you played them. It was definitely something you could spot back then, and unfortunately we've gotten away from that a little bit right now. If you'll notice, we get games that are less frame rate and more about the look of the game, and we've recently got options for like the enhanced systems to target frame rate instead. But like seeing this again and how smooth obviously it is, if you have it on PC, you've been experiencing 60 frames for a lot of things. But if you're on console and you remember those days and you get this, it is kind of jarring because it does feel smoother than a lot of games that you've been probably playing. So it's interesting to think back on that. When I was playing this, I was like, oh yeah, a lot of those PS2 games were 60 frames per second back then. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of them, they targeted frame rate, which was great. It was something I really liked. So we've just gone ahead and opened those spikes up. Now I'll go through here, and I will have a cutscene. I'm going to go ahead and skip that cutscene just to keep it, straight up for the story, so you don't get anything really spoiled too much. So now we'll have enemies that I can fight after they figure out that I was here, and I'm gonna go ahead and beat these guys up. The combat is nothing crazy. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically like a hack and slash game when that happens. So it's not gonna like light the world on fire with its combat. I think the thing that I really remember from this game very fondly, there should be another guy right there, was the puzzle solving. I think there were some really unique parts to the game, and it definitely took a lot of inspiration from things like Zelda, for example. And I like the traditional Zelda games, so of course this was right up my alley, and I really liked it. So again, we're just kind of swiping through these guys with our sword. You get other things that you can use in battle and everything down the road from what I remember, but a lot of times you'll end up swinging at stuff with your sword. A lot of the stuff you get is more or less to solve puzzles. And you do get defensive weapons, which we'll actually get one here because we have to go through that laser door, if you remember. So we'll actually be getting a shield here in a minute, and we'll actually equip it as well. If you look at the top right, we have buttons that we can equip stuff to. So they did maps, so you have L, R, X, Y, and then A is attack, and then B is jump. So they do have that, and it's real time. You can see my jump disappears when I jump once because I don't have a double jump right now. So as I go along, that you'll have that upgraded and everything for you. There we go. So I destroyed all the enemies. That will go ahead and extend that bridge, and we can go across and get our shield that will work to defend us against certain things, and it'll help us complete the puzzle and get through that door. So you can kind of see how they have things that build up as you go through. You'll get items to do other things in a dungeon or just a level in general. Let me go ahead and open this guy up here, and we'll get our shield. So like I said, even though I'm looking at the game now, I can tell, like I said, it's a PS2 game, but it looks better than if I had hooked my PS2 or my GameCube up through HDMI on this monitor. And of course, it has that widescreen support that they have, and they did target 60 frames. I would have been kind of annoyed if they didn't target 60 frames, but they did. I'm also curious if THQ Nordic has any plans to do anything with this game further. Now, they've ported it, obviously, their PC version over, basically, and I'm curious if they will do anything else with this game in terms of its story and a sequel, maybe. Now, I don't know if they will because maybe they're judging it based on the sales for this. Maybe they're not. THQ Nordic, of course, has been doing this with other games, and that's why I was hopeful that when they picked up their Time Splitters IP that they were going to do something with that. Kingdoms of Amalur is another one that they could do something with. But this game, at the end, technically leaves room for a sequel. So I was thinking maybe they would do something with that and attempt to do a sequel. I also wonder if this kind of a game would be able to do well in this day and age in gaming. I would like to think that it could, but platformers have been kind of off and on with their sales. I need to equip my shield still. I just realized that. I'm sitting here talking. I gotta equip that thing so I can get through this part. Take him out just real quick. There's the shield. We'll go ahead and put that on L. So now when I press L, I'll have a nice shield, and I can move it around. And I'll work to block enemy here. And I do have that laser at the block. You also have those save statues there. The other issue I remember having with this game is the saves are very far apart at times. Like, sometimes they're, like, right next to each other. And there's one save that I thought was glitched, but I never ran into that issue. But the saves are weird. Sometimes they're right next to each other. Other times they're nowhere near each other. And it's kind of frustrating at times because if you die and that happened, then you have to go all the way back. So we are at our door here. As soon as I go through here, the story will commence again. And at that point, it gets very spoiler because you start to see how different events start up in the game, because this is still right at the beginning. And after this, you start to really get into it, and it's a lot of fun. So what you just saw was a very early part of the game, and you can just imagine how the puzzles kind of progress from here. But I like the game. I think it's a bit too expensive at $30 for most people to buy it when they just see it on the eShop, but I like the game a lot, and I hope that if it does go on sale, more and more people try it out, or maybe you liked what you saw here and you'd buy it. So I say look into it, especially if you like platforming style games with puzzle solving and a fairly lengthy experience for a platforming game like this. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys in the next video.